Welcome to the first episode of the E-murging Artist, life work and practice as an independent choreographer and performer. I'm Iris, your host, and in this very first episode, I would love to share with you the joy of just starting. I thought it was going to be a good first topic to discuss because really it has taken me something like 3 or 4 years of thinking about I want to do a podcast, I want to create a space that I can share my experiences with you. I want to create content that hopefully you'll find valuable and maybe even comforting. And it has taken me a good amount of years to go from the want to do something into actually doing it. And even this morning, where I've prepped and planned everything and everything was on point, I was finding myself making up excuses, or rather kind of procrastinating. I was like, okay, I'm going to make my coffee first, and then I'm going to pick out the perfect background, and I'm going to make sure my equipment works and the sound is perfect and the light is perfect and everything. And I don't know if that sounds familiar to you, but it's something that I come across quite often in my creative process. And I think there's something there about the want to be perfect and to dedicate as much time and effort as possible into what you're doing, which is really great. It's really good to put your best into what you do. But I think when this becomes a burden, when it becomes a barrier into you doing what you love and creating and letting go of expectations, it's really not great. I mean, I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to finally begin to overcome that. I don't know how I will keep up with this and how I will continue and how I'll be able to hold myself accountable to this. But this was a long way to say I'm really happy to be starting this podcast, and I hope you find value in this, and I hope you find resonance in the things that I will be sharing. I want to be talking about challenges and joys of having an independent career in the arts, and I also want to talk about the choreographic process, collaboration, what goes on behind the scenes, how to create a piece, how to go from an idea to an actual performance, how to prepare for it, and all things in between. Because I get inspiration from many fields, many people, and I really look forward to having some guests as well to talk about their experiences and to have some wonderful discussions with people who I really admire and really care for. And speaking of, I wanted to dedicate this first episode to 2 of my friends. So I had 2 back-to-back conversations actually that really gave me the push to finally be here today and do this. So Pandeli and Cristina Afroditi, thank you so much for the inspiration and the gentle push to finally sit down and talk today. Thank you. So for today's episode, I call it Just Start. How many times have you caught yourself finding out things to do instead of doing the thing that you want to do creatively? And I'm not talking about cleaning, I'm not talking about, things that are like chores, but actually things that you want to do and you have this idea in your head that kind of like never goes away. I have felt this a million times, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last time. So there's so much power and value in just starting something. My offering to you is to be aware of the things that you say to yourself, because most of the times this comes from maybe a place of insecurity, a place of uncertainty. And of course, our body has a tendency to want to protect us You want to feel safe, and I don't know how this podcast is going to go. I don't know, I don't know how people will engage with it. My willingness to do that and my want to share something with you is really allowing me to overcome the fear of the unknown, the fear of failure, the imposter syndrome, and all these things that are very real, but they are keeping me back and they're not helpful. So in this context, I really encourage you to shift the way you're thinking about things. If you are saying to yourself, or if you think that little voice in your head is telling you, are you going to be good enough? Is this going to work? Is that something people want? I encourage you to question that voice and to think, well, is this voice helpful for me now? I understand where it comes from. I understand that it's, part of protecting myself and caring for myself. But actually, is it something helpful for me at this moment? If you discover that it's not, I just suggest you put that voice somewhere really, really far in your head. And you just say, okay, quiet now. Let me take over. Let me just do the thing. And I will learn through practice. I don't need to be perfect. I just need to do it. And I will get better with doing it and by doing it. So this is one part of how to overcome this challenge. I recognize it's not easy. It's still a very difficult thing, but it becomes a practice and it becomes a kind of muscle if you do this cycle of things of listening to that voice, acknowledging it, and actually managing it for your own sake. The second thing that really, really helps me in these situations is finding allies along the way, discussing that with people. Like I did with this podcast, I had a long conversation with my friend that I mentioned earlier, and we discussed the challenges and we shared that we're going through the same emotions. So in that moment, I felt that I'm not alone in this. I'm not by myself in this journey, in this challenge, and I can find comfort in knowing that other people are going through the same thing with me and as me. That really helped me and it really empowered me. And as I share my ideas with people, it makes them feel real. They're out of my head, through my mouth or through, I don't know, whichever means you'd like to share them with, a sketch, a piece of writing, a recording, whatever works for you, but they're out of my head and into somebody else's, in front of someone else, for them to discuss, reflect, and maybe throw in some more ideas. I love to share with people, and it makes the ideas feel more tangible in this sense. I also love working collaboratively, so I always look for new ways of working together. But even it's something that's very personal, it's a solo project or whatever, you can still share it with people. And to be honest, it doesn't really need to be people from the industry, because, people that have an external understanding of the work can offer really, really valuable feedback in terms of how you could communicate that idea better or how you might approach it for different audiences. So yeah, finding allies in that journey and allowing for people to hold you accountable is a big thing. It really helps with continuity and just keeping in practice. I didn't know this was going to turn into a list of things, and by no means do I want to create a list of things for you. This is not how it works. But so I'm not going to number the next point. But I was just thinking that there's also something else that's underlying this idea of wanting to start something but not having the courage or the energy or the perfect conditions to start doing it. I think there's something there about ego and about how we are perceived by others. And we forget this very, very deep need to express. So you can just do something because you want to express yourself. And that might sound like a really selfish thing to do, but actually it's a very, very grounding thing if you think about it, because who cares about what you create in the end? I know it sounds like super, I don't know. For me, it's really helpful. I don't know how it sounds to you actually, and I'm interested if you want to put it in the comments or send me a message. But who cares about what we create? Nobody does. So why don't you start this thing that you wanted to start it for ages and just do it for the love of it? Yeah, nobody cares what you do. That sounded more sassy than what I intended it. But that's the truth, my friend. Nobody cares. You shouldn't care that much. You put the effort in what you do, but don't care about how it's perceived. Because at the time you create something, it shouldn't be your intention how it's going to be perceived. Your intention should be to just express yourself and capture an idea, a concept that you have in your head. It's simple as. I know it's not that simple to come through with it, because we would be in episode 62 if it was. But that's my point. I don't know where this point is going. But yeah, the point is nobody cares and you should just do it. Having said that, I also recognize how difficult it is to not constantly judge ourselves in an era that has instant access from audiences or from receivers to creators. People can comment, people can reach out and say whatever the F they want and judge your work, and without having any context or any idea about who you are, why you're doing this, what is the work about. And the most unhelpful thing we do is that we project these things onto ourselves. So I do encourage you, if you find that you kind of judge yourself or you're trying to make a comment on your process or your work at the time when you're creating it, bring some self-compassion into the mix. Just hold yourself by hand and give yourself some space. Give yourself some time to create without any second guessing, without doubt, without judgment. Just allow yourself to be in the process, fully immersed, and you will have time to reflect on what you've done. You will have time and you will have conversations with people, and people will get the opportunity to really discuss with you your ideas and your processes and all of that. But at the time when you create, it's not a very helpful thing, and it's also not important. You know, the important thing is that you keep yourself in the process and you just enjoy the joy that is to create, the joy that is to be able to express yourself through your medium of choice. So just starting has to do with allowing yourself to just be. That is very simple, very deep and profound, quite challenging if you are used to a different way of working, or if you're your tendency is not to just do, which most of us, isn't. But I think if you really tap into that voice of passion and urgency and a need to do so, because it is a need, it's not a want. When you have something as a creative idea, it's a need that has to be out, that has to be explored and developed and executed. Otherwise, what? Otherwise, it just lives in your head forever and it haunts you. It does haunt you. You will spend, 6-10 years of like thinking about the same thing. And rather than focusing on developing, you'll be thinking about, why am I not doing this? Why am I not pursuing it? Why is it still just in my head? So I hope this very first episode of The Emerging Artist really, really gives you some tools and some encouragement you need to just start working on the things that you love. You don't need anything else. You don't need an agenda. I don't even know what's going on with this podcast. It's the first time in my life that I didn't make a schedule. I didn't make a plan. I didn't lay out the whole, the whole structure of the 30 episodes with all the titles, and I just tried to have a different process today. I just tried to have a different process in the way I organize things, the way that I want to plan things, because I want to feel secure and I want to feel in control and I want to feel that I always know what I'm doing. So today, instead of doing that, I just said, I'm going to turn up the mic. I'm going to put my phone on record and I'm just going to share with you what's in my head and how I'm thinking about this. And I'm being really open and honest about this. I'm not trying to pretend that I am organized. And I'm a very organized person. Like, people who know me can, really say this thing about me. But I'm letting go of that skill of mine because I think there is value in trying a different method. And especially when it has to do with these processes that are always present and are always a challenge in this world, I wanted to just do it. As a little bonus or takeaway from this episode, I have a little exercise for you. You might want to take a piece of paper, or if you are listening on the move, maybe just take a few moments to reflect on it. Let's start from this big idea that you have in your head. You know which one I'm talking about. I'm talking about this idea that comes to you before bed and you're like, I should be sleeping right now. Why am I thinking of the same thing for years and years? You know what? Because it's not going to go away if you don't do it. So pick this idea out, and I want you to write in a piece of paper or think in your head, what's stopping me right now? Have a moment to think about this. List of things that you feel that they're barriers. Usually it's things like, I don't have funding, I don't have equipment, I don't have the team, whatever it is that you're telling yourself is stopping you, just write it down or think about it. Let's be very, very clear about what your challenges are. What are you up against? So this is the first task. The second task is, who is an ally in this journey? And I talked about allies in this episode because I really believe that when people come together, it's really powerful. There's so much value in creating relationships through that. So think about people in your life, or maybe even people who you don't know, but you would like to get to know and you think would help you in this journey. Just note down their names. If it's someone from your background, it can be even a member of family that really believes in you and you feel empowered and you feel really charged and energetic when you talk to them. They're your ally. They can offer so much support, and actually invaluable support in this. That's to say, it doesn't need to be someone from the industry, it doesn't need to be someone who could help you creatively. Other partners are really, really helpful too. So that's task number 2. And then the third one, I think, is always the hard one, and it's to pick a time and date where you will start doing the work. It's so hard to give deadlines to ourselves, and it's so hard to hold ourselves accountable when we don't have a deadline. It's hard to find the motivation, even if you want to do the things really badly. And I know from experience, I know that if I could push back everything for myself, I would. Although I'm proud to be a very, very reliable person, when it comes to other people, I'm never late, I never not deliver. When it comes to my own projects, if I don't set up a deadline, if I don't share the goal with someone, I just don't do it. So, you're not going to be like me, you're going to be better than me, you're going to set a deadline for yourselves and you're going to share it with someone and send the stuff to them or show them that you've come through and you've delivered what you want to deliver because you respect yourself and you make the effort and you find value in what you do. So I look forward to seeing your work. I look forward to seeing your ideas flourish, and I look forward to say congratulations for starting. It's a big step, but it's the first step on a very long journey. Goodbye, my friends. Until next time.